no good. Rebounded by Anthony. 2 seconds left. Anthony for the win. Cody throws it. Cole Anthony gives the Magic a victory.
Close-up Magic.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Close-Up Magic. I'm your host, Stephen Cameron, and this is the first episode of the year. I took last week off. Just life got too busy, too crazy, but we're back, and we have a great guest this week. We got Dan Savage of the Orlando Magic. He'll be joining us shortly. Before we get into that, just want to hit the quick housekeeping updates. We're supported by 19 Media Group. It's the network that backs us. Check out their podcast. They have a lot of really good shows. The one I'll shout out this week is the NBA Baseline, where they cover the entire NBA and not just a specific team. They also have other specific team shows like the Lakers. They got a wrestling show. So go check them out. It's really good, popular network group, and they just crush it. They do really well, and we're thankful for them to support this show here. Other things you can do to support the show is you can buy merch. I'm not currently wearing any, but we got hats, sweaters, t-shirts, and then the other thing, if you want to financially support the show, is you can also consider joining our Patreon group. Got a couple different tiers. You guys know the drill. I'm not going to blab about it too much, but it's in the show description. If you're on our socials, it's in our link trees in the bio, so check those out. And then last and not least, please like and subscribe to whatever platform you are listening to this to. If you're on YouTube, give us a subscription and a thumbs up. We appreciate it. So this episode is about a little bit of the mid-season check-in. We got Dan Savage. We are going to kind of like the Magic are halfway through the season, just a few games over, 42 games. We're just going to get right into it. So without further ado, let's welcome Dan. Dan Savage, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing great. Great to keep following you guys and see you guys keep expanding and getting even bigger episode by episode, year by year. So, happy to be on here and glad to see all the work you guys are doing. Appreciate you.
Yeah, it's been fun. I feel like this might be your first appearance this season, and you've been on, probably at least the last 2 or 3 seasons on the show. So psyched to get you on and talk about the team. The team right now is currently on like a nice little 4-day off period. I think they had a practice today. I'm not sure if they have one tomorrow. Maybe you can update me there.
They do.
They do have another one tomorrow.
I get called in for that.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
The Magic, actually, I don't even have this up. Let me double check real quick before I sound like a fool. I enjoyed my winter break a lot. So the Magic are 16-28, Dan. That gives them, the 13th spot in the East. They are a few games out of kind of that cluster in the play-in for 10th, and not quite low enough on the bottom of the barrel for lottery standings. And not that we're really trying to go for the lottery this year, in my opinion, but let's just start pretty high level for this conversation. Halfway through the season, what's your when someone asks you about the Magic and how they're doing, what is your answer to that?
Well, I think you have to really look at it as, one of those things that kind of gets like an incomplete grade, because the early part of the season, I think heading into this, there were 2 big things that I looked at from my personal standpoint as important things to see early in the season. One is, how does Paolo Banchero look? Because obviously he's the number 1 pick heading into the season. Does he look good? The answer unequivocally is yes. You've got a guy right there that's, every time you're looking at a stat, it's like, oh, he's the first player since LeBron or Michael Jordan or Wilt Chamberlain. And when you see those kind of comparisons and numbers, things are going well. So you look at that box and you're like, all right, that they get an A plus, all the positive grades. Then the second part that comes along with it is the development of the young players and how these pieces fit together. And I think injuries in the early part of the season are the reason for that kind of incomplete grade. I really think such an important thing to get out of this season was to be able to evaluate how do these pieces fit together So as you start going forward and building this group, you can really understand what you have, what you need. And I think the injuries early on kind of derailed that to see how all these pieces fit together. And when you talk about the record, I mean, look, since Markelle Fultz has come back into the fold and playing, they're much more of a 500 team than a team, that's 12 games or whatever under 500. So I think what we're going to see over the second half of the season, if these players stay healthy, is Jamal Mosley finally really have the ability to hold players accountable, play the players that are playing the best, and start to develop rotations where guys can start getting comfortable with one another. And it's not like, who am I playing next to on a given night?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree that first, 15, 20 or so games of the season, it was just there was so much inconsistency with who was available when. It seemed like every other game someone was, it's one person was coming in, one person was getting injured and coming out. And then, you don't really have a true point guard with either Fultz and Cole not available. And then they both come back and all of a sudden the Magic go on a 6-game winning streak. And
funny how that worked.
Yeah, it's funny. Like you have people to lead the offense on both the first and second unit and kind of be there. And then, it's, we can get into Fultz maybe a little bit more later, but like Fultz, obviously and clearly improvements on the defensive end this season is very noticeable and impactful, and clearly just like help this team get organized and be there. But it is sort of hard to like do a full midseason check-in. You have to sort of like, in my opinion, maybe break it down into quarters, right? First quarter and the second quarter. The second quarter is where I feel like we're getting a lot more data as far as like the team as a whole. There were some like individual takeaways you could do for a full season, like you had mentioned, Paolo. Yes, check. He's awesome. Franz, even better than last year. Hard to do a few others, but like even Wendell Carter, yep, still solid, hasn't really changed much. But not everything has been like, easy to take away with just how inconsistent the first quarter was. Now, you brought up Jamal Mosley. What do you think some of the things he has learned and he has grown as a coach from the beginning of the season to this halfway point have been? It seems like, in my opinion, rotations were really wide for a while at the beginning of the season. Now they're a lot more tight in some cases. Sometimes he's doing a 9-man rotation. Sometimes he's doing a 10-man rotation. Certain players are getting DNPs, not because of health reasons, but because of choice. What's your kind of a thought with like the growth of Jamal Mosley this season and sort of like his approach to the team so far?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's, those are kind of things.
I didn't prepare you for that one either, so I'm sorry. It's all
good. Those are the kind of things that when you go look back at the end of the season that really look at as where he's made strides. I would just say from the moment that he's arrived, the one thing that, I notice about him, whether it's in the practice scenario when he's speaking to the team or coaching, is just his communication is just at such a high level. To have such a great appreciation for him. I just think he knows how to speak to the team given the situation, whether that's keeping them focused on the task at hand and not getting too high when, they've won 6 straight, or when they've gone through a rough period and not letting guys get too down. I think coming off that 6-game stretch and they lost where they won 6 straight and then they lost a couple, I think guys started to get a little frustrated because it was like, felt like we were right there. And then we went through a little slip up. And I think his message right then and there was just keep your heads up. We're reintroducing players. It's not going to be perfect. We're playing the right way and things are going to sort out. And you see that. And so it's just one example, his messaging, his ability to connect. And I think that's what you see why on any given game night, regardless of the score, the situation, the Magic always seem to find themselves in the game towards the end. And I think it's just because he's such a tremendous communicator and leader in that regard. And the players really rally behind him. And, I just gain more and more appreciation for it the closer I watch him and the more time I get to spend around him.
Absolutely. I want to like touch back to some of the parts that you were talking about as communication. Personally, I really do appreciate Jamal Mosley on this team. I don't always agree with like some of his on-court decision making, but like overall, I think he's the right coach for where we are at this moment. And one thing like I have to circle back to with what you were saying is communication with this team. Like even before the 6-game winning streak, we had a 9-game losing streak and, some other really ups and downs with this season. And maybe there's some stuff behind scenes that you see that I didn't see and that were off camera or off mic, but it really seemed like the players, no matter how much tribulation was going on, they were connected. I didn't really notice too much like frustration or guys being checked out. Maybe a little bit here and there, but for the most part, like I feel like he's done a really good job of keeping this group together and focused, no matter what curveball's been thrown at them. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is like you said, he connects well with the players individually and whatnot. And like I think that gets picked up around the entire league. I was listening to the Mismatch the other day, and this was after the Memphis game, and the Mismatch has got Chris Vernon and Kevin O'Connor. I believe I'm
an avid listener, so.
Oh yeah, they're great. But for the listeners who don't know, Chris Vernon covers the Memphis Grizzlies, and one of the things that they were talking about when they brought up the Magic and Grizzlies game, and they had a lot of really high praises to talk about this Magic team on that episode. And if you heard this episode, he talks about how, like, I forget what player that was out on the court. Maybe it was Wendell Carter or one of the other bigs, but Jamal Mosley was on the court helping him warm up. And they're like, that's so rare to see in a coach. Most of the times it's one of the coaches in the second row that is out there helping them warm up and not, the head coach or the lead assistant. And I think that just speaks volume to how much involvement Coach Mosley wants to have with these players. And I think that's what helps. I mean, outside looking in, it seems like that is such a really helpful thing and character of Coach Mosley to keep these guys connected with the young team that's going up and down with different struggles and whatnot. Is he like that in practices?
Oh yeah, unquestionably. His level, I mean, I'm really taken aback by it and awestruck by it. It was like, I remember when, they made the hire and, naturally, I've been in the league a long time. Prior to the Magic, I was with the NBA itself. So, I have different people know at each team base. And so when you hire a coach, the first thing you do is call up the different people at the team. And regardless of the stop, when I spoke to people who knew him, it was like, oh my God, you're going to love this guy. He's just so easy to work with. He gets it. He's, just has this ability to connect with people. And it was like so overwhelming, the way people spoke of him. And I'm like, it almost sounded too good to be true. And then in the aftermath of hiring him and getting to know him and work with him over the last 2 years, I almost feel like it was undersold. Like there's not even words to put to it. And I think it just almost has to be experienced where, when the Magic arrive in a city and come off the bus and go into a game, it's almost like a presidential figure has arrived or a family member has returned home. There's just so many people in every stop that come up to him and he's having long in-depth conversations. People are just so happy to see him. His ability to connect with people as a human being, regardless of whether they're a player on the teams, whether it's staff, whether, it's players he's met before, is just unmatched. It's really unmatched. And so I think over the long term, when you talk about fostering the culture and building that type of family environment, he's just at the center of it. And the thing about him, it's not fake. It's not forced. It's just genuine. It's who he is. Because you can't fake that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. He's just such a natural at it. And it's really a testament. Amazing. His ability to just name recognition, know things about people, what's important to them, really unmatched. And, I just can't speak highly enough of him. I think he's unquestionably the right guy to have at this position for the Orlando Magic right now. And his ability to connect with young players is going to really, expedite this process.
You brought up name recognition, and
I wish I was better at that.
Joe, me and you both. But we have the Close Up Magic has been covering a lot more games in person this year. I think we've gotten up to like 7 or 8.
I've seen you guys around. It's great.
Yeah, CJ yep. Hill, Clarence. He's been doing a great job. He'll be at a couple of the home games coming up as well, including this one on Friday. But one of the and CJ and I, we talk almost after every time he covers a game, just not only about how we are going to present the information and our takeaways from his experience, but also just about his experience that we might not talk about. One of the things he told me is, from the first game to the second game, there was I think a couple week gap between us doing that, maybe even 3 weeks. And Coach Mosley remembered his name and even greeted him when he saw him in the hallway and was like, "Oh, hey, Clarence, good to see you again." It was 2 to 3 weeks later, a random reporter who might not have even gotten a question to ask him that first experience there, right? Maybe he did. I'm not sure maybe it was one, but it's just funny. And to then see, the last time we covered a game, CJ asked a question to coach, and they had a little funny, one-off connection there with a little laugh in the middle. It's just you can tell Coach Mosley is a people person so much that he's already, and maybe you can't speak to this, so NBA don't listen, and Dan, you can just smile if you don't want to say anything, but I feel like he's already tampering with Luka for us in a couple of seasons. Who knows what happens with the Mavs over there, but every time the Mavs come into town or we're playing them, Luka and him have a 10-minute hangout conversation on the court. It's fantastic. Maybe it means Luka might be a future Magic, but we're not gonna focus on that too much, Dan. We'll carry on to other things. Let's transition away from coach for a moment, Dan, and talk about a couple individual players. The first player I want to talk about is someone who a lot of fans like, but have recently had some frustrations with him because he's in a little bit of a slump here, Dan. And that player is Cole Anthony, who, in my opinion, has gotten better as a facilitator. He's gotten better running the pick and roll. He's doing things a little bit more focused defensively, even if he struggles there. But his shot has been off most of the season. He is playing a little bit more off ball, playing next to other ball handlers. That's also improved there, but there's no doubt there's no doubt that he's in a bit of a slump right now. And it's affecting the team a bit. What, just in general, what are your thoughts on Cole Anthony for the whole season? Considering, really the second quarter of the season, considering he was out the first quarter for the most part, and just kind of his slump now, and what does he got to do to get out of this situation that he's in and can kind of find his groove again?
Well, Steven, a lot as it is with a lot of these things, I don't think one thing you can put your finger on. What I would say is, I think what you alluded to as you were asking the question, where you mentioned he was injured for the first part of the season, and I thought Cole had such a phenomenal offseason with as you guys follow just as well as all of us do in the offseason. It's following social media, what these guys are doing, and you see all the work he's putting in on a daily basis. And then you see him in the September months as the team's starting to trickle back in, and everybody's opening up media day and all that stuff. And his body was just so much different that people started coining him Swole Cole, and those names started going around. And then, with the type of injury he had, couldn't work out as much, couldn't shoot as much. He had to rest, all those type of things. And I think that was such a big disruptor based off all the momentum he had going into the season. But I think you're seeing the cerebral aspects that he could work on while he was out pay dividends, which is, he's improved as a floor general. You can see that when he's doing those type of things and getting other guys going. I think you're seeing the defensive effort increase. And one thing where, he's so valuable too, and it was a big emphasis of practice today, was as a rebounder. As a guard, as this team, needs to focus on defensive rebounding, he's one of those guards that could come in there and really impact the game in that fashion where, nobody'd be shocked if he puts up double-digit rebounds on a given night on a team that could potentially have 4 players, 6'10" or bigger, running right alongside him. So
sure.
I think the shot flow will come. Look, he's also, at points been asked to start, at points come off the bench. He's had guys next to him constantly changing. And I think all that, plays a role. If you're going to get 30-something minutes, it's easier to pick, okay, I know my time's going to come where I could get my shot at this time in this quarter or that time in that quarter. And, I think he's figuring all that out and making sure he's not forcing things. But I think his approach has been the right way. And I think as he continues to get comfortable, as the Magic have stability in what's around him, now that guys are healthy, I think the rest of the numbers are going to start to come as the season evolves. And you'll see his statistics get back to the means. I'm sure we'll have some red-hot Cole Anthony games with walk-offs with Dante Marchitelli. And, we'll have some viral moments with Cole coming up here pretty soon.
Absolutely. I'm not overly worried too. And I'm not I like to balance stats with just also watching the game. I think you can't just look at stats without physically seeing what's going on in the court. There's a lot more, but just a couple of numbers to give some encouragement to some of the fans that follow the team and, are might be a little bit down on Cole. And which is understandable. He is in a shooting slump. There's no denying that, but he's having his highest free throw percentage of any season he's played yet at 89%. He has his highest 2-point percentage of his career at 46%, and then he actually has his overall highest just field goal percentage at 40%. So with his 3-point number being the lowest it's been, at 30%, I do feel like that will start to creep back up, as this team, as some of the points you were saying, Dan, as this team continues to find its flow, as that second unit continues to improve, it's probably going to be, there's no denying it's hard to have good offense when your defense is also struggling. And right now, a lot of those good defensive players have been in and out of the rotation with Suggs and Gary Harris also having issues and injury issues consistently. Defensively, Mo Bamba hasn't been that bad, but like Moritz Wagner hasn't been as effective as he has in the past. There's Chuma's been out of the lineup. There's just been a lot of some of the defensive pieces for that second unit have just not been there and when, my opinion, good offense comes off of good defense, right?
No, and we've seen it with this Magic team. Yeah. Their best offensive games have come when the defense has fueled the offense, when they're generating turnovers. And you look at stages of games, whether it be the Nuggets game, where the defense turned up and really got them back into the game offensively. Totally. You could go down the line. And so, I think as key defensive pieces, so much of defense is communication, knowing where the guy is going to be around you. And so I think as you alluded to, maybe Mo Wagner, you talked about his defensive impact. Well, we saw that stretch where he was a starter and he built, he was playing consistently with that particular group. Yeah. While he was playing defensively, you go to the second unit and things, shift around a little bit. So I think as all these guys get more time together and the lineups become more stable, we're going to see whether it's offensive numbers that you were talking about with Cole, defensive, areas with other guys, continue to improve, because that level of communication, I know this guy's going to be here. I know he likes to go over or under, or, approach the screen this particular way. All those things are going to, play out and who's the low man, which is a big focus in the Magic's defense. And, the Magic have a lot of guys who could play the low man role up and down this roster. So, with certain groups, you could be a 4, at certain groups, you could be a 5, you could be a 3. And so I think as you get comfortable with the rotations that you're playing, as that becomes more stable, we'll see all the numbers continue to elevate for this Orlando Magic team, as we've seen in stretches and spurts, because I think that's the one thing is we've seen flashes of all of it. Just need that stability and the consistency. And I think as you get consistency with the guys you're playing around you, the consistency and the numbers will continue to follow.
Dan, you talked about communication right there. And I want to pause there and talk about that for a second. We're halfway through the season. As we've mentioned, who has emerged as a on-court vocal leader, and then who has emerged as an off-court vocal leader?
That's a good question. I continue to be impressed with Wendell in that fashion in both of those areas. I think he's just got such a mature way about him that, ever since he's arrived, I've just been really impressed with how he's accepted that, embraced it, and almost sought that out. He's just got a good way about him. I think when you talk about guys that are just constantly pointing things out, Markelle Fultz is next level. He's always communicating with guys, grabbing people, whether he's on the bench or on the court, and pointing to, hey, I see this way. Hey, I think I could get you a bucket if you do this, if you move this way. Hey, this is how we run it in practice. Remember, get over here a little bit. He's just got that, ultimate floor general approach about him where he's just so next level in that regard. And then, I think Franz, with his competitive fire, it surprised me, the growth he's starting to make in that area in year two. And I think we'll continue to make. And I think that's really where the Eurobasket, FIBA experience continued to help him, is just he's come into season two with such confidence. He's playing so well. You've seen him be more aggressive. I think he's starting to grow in that area. And so, for a Magic team that doesn't have too many veterans, that you would consider, in the 30s and in the aging, parts of their career, I think we've seen a lot of these guys, young guys, show flashes, which really bodes well for the future. Because honestly, if you're building a team, you want all these young guys to have leadership qualities and develop in those regards. But those three jump out to me. Off the top of my head, I'm probably leaving some guys out, because guys all do it in their different ways. Like, for example, Jalen Suggs, who's, when you piece all the games he's played together yet, probably hasn't even played a full rookie season. But when he steps on the court, you could feel it, like with the level of intensity he brings. And I think that's contagious. Same thing with Mo Wagner. Like, that guy gets out there, like, as a fan, you could almost get the sense you want to jump through the TV with that guy at times, Yeah. So I think guys all have different ways of going about it. And I think the good thing that Jeff Weltman and John Hammond have done is all the guys in this locker room and that are brought up, they're good people. They have leadership qualities. They all have it within them. And I think as the years go by, you'll be like, wow, this Magic team is built with something special. You got so many leadership guys, whereas other teams may fall short in that regard.
How does Paolo fill in, like, his impact in that general area?
I think as a rookie, so much of what you're trying to do is absorb, whether he's obviously a physical presence, his scoring ability is, evident from the second he walked through the door. But at that stage of your development, you're still trying to figure out how all the guys play around you, where you should be within the flow of the offense at given times, where you should be on the defensive end. And so I think this season for him is mastering all of that, absorbing all that knowledge. And you could already see with his competitive drive, with the way he pushes the guys, you saw a little bit of a mic'd up segment with him earlier this season. He's got that competitive fire. And I think from a leadership perspective, as the seasons go by, he's going to be phenomenal in that regard. Had the opportunity to talk to some of the people with him at Duke. He excelled in those areas. And I think as the seasons go by and he becomes looked to as, okay, you're the third, fourth year of your NBA career. He's going to be, very special in that regard because he's already so mature for his age. Like, he came into the season, I know he's 20 now, but he came into the season as a 19-year-old, and it just, nothing like him felt like a 19-year-old. Whether it was like the first time you laid eyes on him and saw his body and you're like, that's not the body of a 19-year-old kid, or the way that he talks and, the maturity about what he's saying, his message. He's just about the right stuff. He's about winning. And I think when, a guy who's a franchise cornerstone, which is what you are when you're selected with the number 1 overall pick, has that mindset, everybody else falls into line because you're not going to be able to be a selfish, stat hungry guy if the number 1 overall pick who's, killing it in every category is just all about winning himself.
I know we're going all over the place, Dan, here from what we actually talked about before we turned on the cameras and started recording. Paolo going to make an all-star. He's averaging 21 points a game, almost 4 assists per game, almost 7 rebounds per game. He's averaging almost 6 free throw attempts per game and hitting 76% of those shots. Is he going to be the first rookie since Blake Griffin to make an all-star appearance in his first season?
He's got my vote. I'll tell you that. It's when you dominate the way he's had as a rookie, and you come off a month where you win Rookie of the Month, probably by a landslide in December. Yeah. And you say, you know what? Didn't have my best month. I think that says a lot about him and where he's going to go. And I think his impact is felt right away. I mean, when you look at the opposing team's scouting reports, the way other teams defend the Magic, coaches could say one thing, but they tell you a lot by the way they defend you. And the amount of attention he's drawn at this stage of his career, I haven't seen anything like it up close since, the Magic had Dwight Howard, where so much of the other team's defensive game plan is trying to limit this guy, trying not to put him on the free throw line, trying to show him, things early and in different fashions to not let him get comfortable. He commands so much attention. And then afterwards, when you talk to the opposing coaches and players, everyone to a man is just, heaps him with praise. And, at the end of the season, I'll have, a piece as we, probably go about making his case for Rookie of the Year, which is a collection of them. And I could already tell you, like, some seasons you go through things and you're trying to make a case for whether it be a guy for first rookie team or, et cetera, or what he's done. And you're, scrambling for things. You're trying to search for things. With Paolo, it's going to be like, what stuff do we keep? Because there's just too much stuff. You're going to have to cut a bunch of it. Otherwise, it would just be a never ending scroll of an article because it just seems like every game that goes by, it's either an opposing coach or player is just heaping praise on that kid, and for good reason. He's having a rookie season that we rarely see in the NBA, and it's great to have here in Orlando.
You're gonna have to just release like a bunch of mini articles on a regular basis.
You're gonna have to do volume 1, everything. 2. Yeah, it's gonna be like a mixtape.
The second edition, the fourth. Yeah, exactly. Volume 3, 4th edition.
Yeah, it's like this player is just a borderline all-star. He's not a multi-time all-star, giving heap praise on Paolo. So, we're going to scratch him for the list. This coach hasn't won an NBA championship yet, so we're not going to use his line. I mean, that's the level you could go to right now with the way people are talking about Paolo. Yeah. And then in the media too. I mean, you talk about what they're talking about on the mismatch. You listen to the Hoop Collective had a pretty nice segment on him the other day with Spears, where Mark did a great job. He was a little wrong on his insight about his name, his Banchero, so stick with that. But everything else was on point, with what he was saying.
Yeah, I was laughing at the Banchero part there, but yeah,
it does. To his credit, it does look a little bit like that. When you're first glancing at his name, but
yep.
I've confirmed and reconfirmed and confirmed again that
you'll have to reach out to Mark and let him know. Hey, buddy, just want to let you know.
Follow up real quick. From me, but I'm sure Palace people could take care of it.
Sure. All right, let's transition a little bit to some more exciting news. And you've been with him quite a bit these last few weeks as the team was on a road trip. Jonathan Isaac, he has had a very long road to recovery and just played his first game since the bubble, and which was 2 years ago, and really his first game with an audience in it since
892 days.
Yeah. Crazy. The numbers. You've written countless articles and stories and followed him closer than anyone, but he's finally making his way back. He played before his first, game with the G League. He had done a handful of full contact practices with the G League and with the NBA roster, or with the Magic. And then, there was some frustrations. Oh, why didn't he go on the road trip? And then just a handful of days later, it was announced that that's because he's going to be playing with the Lakeland Magic in an actual game, actually in 2 of them. And now it's been announced, I think he's got a couple more coming up as well. I'll just kind of leave it up there. Jonathan Isaac, man, what are your thoughts on just this progress, where he's at, and kind of where he's going?
If you see the smile on my face, it's like, you try to distance yourself from this, being a reporter who's, talking about the team and all that type of stuff. But to see just a human being who's as nice of a guy as he is, have to go through all that rehab process, where he was towards the end of last season and, just kind of run out of runway. And then he has a slight setback right after they announce he's going to, be done for the season with his hamstring. And it's just like another hurdle for this guy, to go through to really, complete his comeback, and to see just the nonstop positive energy, go about his work every single day. Whether the team was out there practicing and he's going through, 4 or 5 hours of extensive rehab work, and to see it finally pay off for him to come out the court. By the time you hit the midpoint of the season, of a regular season, there's not much that you're like, oh my God, I can't wait to see this moment, unless it's a big matchup or a player matchup. But, there's not a ton of those type of things. And so, but to get to see Jonathan really go out there and get to be back to the court, it was like one of those things I was just, you couldn't wait to see him walk in, to see the excitement on his face, to see him check into the game. And for that particular matchup, it all lived up to everything you could hope for. I mean, for him personally, really, all the game was about is just getting game conditioning level back.
Sure.
It's not like, an NBA matchup where you're trying to achieve certain things, you're trying to do certain defensive things. It was just get back into game shape, get used to doing those certain movements. But on top of that, I think what was so special is you saw the elements of what makes Jonathan Isaac special carry over. Those elements still exist. And you got to see some of the hard work he's put in on his body, his shot, all that type of stuff, start to come out. And I think it's just scratching the surface. He's just put so much work into so many areas, and to see it come to fruition, to see him have a good performance, to see Lakeland win, to see the fans that were there. There's so many of the fans that were there, the percentage of them that were in Jonathan Isaac attire, whether that be Magic stuff, Florida State stuff. It was really cool to see. They did a good job of giving him a great ovation. You could feel it when he checked into the game, the energy change. I was really happy for him, and, just can't wait for him to complete that process by getting back on the NBA floor.
His story is one that's never been seen in the NBA, in my opinion. Like, it's very rare. I mean, plenty of guys have had plenty of, injuries. Markelle Fultz dealt with them for a few years. I mean, Grant Hill, there's, Penny for a while dealt with them, but Jonathan Isaac, there's just not quite, you don't see too many players go through what he's gone through, basically missing 3 full seasons and, coming back, and looks like he's going to be wearing an actual NBA Magic uniform and not a Lakeland Magic uniform, hopefully in the near future. My couple follow-ups, obviously. He played a little bit of the 5 with Lakeland. Do you think that's something that coach might experiment with a little bit with the Orlando roster, considering we saw maybe 20 minutes in the entire career up until his injuries of him playing the 5 in short little segments? What should we not dig too much into that? Was that just a circumstance of him being the tallest guy on the court?
I think that element of it is probably with him being the tallest guy on the court,
Sure.
in that particular situation. But I think the one thing we've seen with Jamal Mosley is he's not afraid to tinker with lineups and put things out there and play a bunch of tall people that are, in a sense, playing positionless basketball. So would I be surprised if, down the road that's something Jonathan does? Absolutely not. However, I do think, part of his gift is to be that size and move the way that he does defensively, especially on the perimeter and closing out to guys. So I think there's an element of that really benefits, when he's playing things like the 4
Absolutely.
or such like that. So, no, I think Jonathan Isaac, especially defensively, is capable of so much. And what I really look forward to is, like, over the course of this be the preseason, the season when he was doing his workout and working and shooting on individual drills, you could see a noticeable improvement in his shot. Like, it's just a lot different from the last time he played basketball. Now, my personal belief, when you see that type of improvement, there's always a delay to those type of things becoming effective in game action, because,
Sure.
Whether it's a package move you've worked on, whether it's shooting thing, it's one of those things that kind of, you don't see the results right away. And I think for him, he's going to have to work on translating those elements into the game. You could start to see it with Lakeland, but I'm sure it's one of those things that we're going to start to see as the season goes along. He's picking back up into game shape, getting more comfortable, and then, maybe even carries into next season. But there's a very big difference. He's made the most of his time as anybody in that situation could have, whether it be with his body, because you go back and look at some of the early photos of him when I was looking at the last time he played in Lakeland and was trying to look at photos of that and stuff. And you're like, wow, he just looks like a little kid. And then you look at his body now and you're like, oh my God, he is built different. So he's made the most of his time. I'm really excited for him to have the early success, and wishing him, nothing but health, because it'll be really great. He's such a guy who's about motivating people. You see it with his faith and all the elements of what he's doing. If he comes around and has a successful career, think about all the guys that go through injuries and hurdles and setbacks that he could point to and say, look at what Jonathan Isaac did. Look what he overcame.
Sure.
I think if he could be that type of motivator for people, who better?
Yeah, for sure. I know the Magic fans are very much looking forward to it. He's in my group. His name comes up in my group chats on a regular daily basis. You were talking about his perimeter defense there. And, one of the things that made, like you said, that made Jonathan Isaac so special is his ability to do that, with his quick lateral movements and, his quick twitch, as some refer it. Do you feel like he still kind of has that with what you've seen in Lakeland, or is there like a hair lost there, or just going to have to kind of wait and see as he continues to get his body back into shape.
Yeah, I think he still has a lot of those elements. I mean, his first possession where he checks in that Lakeland game, he gets put on former teammate Melvin Frazier Jr., who happens to be playing for the Westchester Knicks at the time, and, smothers him out in the perimeter. Instantly, he's got those quick hands, deflects the ball, forces a shot clock violation. And to me, that was just like, okay, like Jonathan's still got the elements that make him Jonathan. Now, obviously, there's a little bit of a difference in that and then being switched out onto Steph Curry or Kevin Durant.
Sure.
And those are, boxes he'll have to check as he goes back in there and build up that confidence again, because it's not only a physical thing, it's also a mental thing. You can simulate all that stuff, but practices at the NBA level don't go that hard. G League speed is one thing, but when you actually have to get to go out there and guard the best players in the world playing in crunch moments, there's nothing to replicate that. So, everything I've seen thus far is he's still got the elements that make him very special. And, I'm looking forward to seeing it where he gets to go up against the best players in the world again and be, the minister of defense, which makes him, such a special player for this organization.
I love that nickname.
Shout out David Steele.
I have to ask, and I probably know the answer, and I think every Magic fan knows the answer. Any idea when we see him on the court soon?
They've done such a good job of sticking to no timeline. I think you're going to stick to that. But
sounds good.
I think the one thing has been is how his body responds to playing these minutes in Lakeland. We're starting to see those minutes, go up, and he's gonna. I think he'll come back and be ready once he feels his conditioning's at that level. So it'll be, as much as the Magic's decision is his decision. It'll be a mutual discussion of how he's feeling. Sure. But I think the promising thing is now we can all say we definitely see the light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. We're seeing the promising signs. Everything's trending in the right direction. So I feel very confident in saying that it'll be sooner than later that we see Jonathan Isaac on the NBA court.
Yeah, I feel that as well. I mean, to me, it feels more like weeks than months at this point. With having did he practice with the team today?
No, he's stayed with the Lakeland teams on a trip in Sioux Falls. He's with them. Perhaps playing tomorrow, Thursday, with them in Sioux Falls. So it'll be a good opportunity for him to continue to experience all that stuff.
Sure.
Totally. So no, he did not practice with the team today. He was with Lakeland.
That makes sense if he's playing with them tomorrow. And traveling with them. So. Yeah, we don't have a timeline. We know that, and that's just like the MO of the Magic and a lot of different teams in the NBA. But to me, like I was mentioning, it feels like weeks than months, and maybe not like next week or the week after, but it feels like it's somewhat safe to say that than like, oh yeah, we'll see him in March. That would be a little. To me, it'd be a little strange if it was March when we saw him and not sometime next month in February. But it's been really encouraging just to like check the box scores or, watch the highlights for the Lakeland games. And, then cool, get an announcement just a few days later. Like, yep, he's going to be playing with the Lakeland, for a couple more games. I think, I don't remember if it was you or Kobe Price that might have talked about that a few days ago, but, yeah, it's just really exciting to see the impact of Jonathan Isaac, what he could have on this team, and just seeing him play again. Dan, I know we've been going for a little while. Let's wrap this up with one last mini topic, because I know we can't go too deep here, and I'm not going to ask you like specifics on players and different situations, but the trade deadline is coming up early next month. I think it's on the 9th of February. The Magic in this current situation, young team, they have some extra picks. They have some players on some really favorable contracts to a lot of teams. They're They're kind of chasing play in. Just overall, like, what do you think is the Magic's mindset going like into these last couple of weeks up to the trade deadline?
Well, I'll tell you this. I think it's one of those things where, for teams approaching the trade deadline, it benefits you to have assets. That's unquestionable. And I think what Jeff and John have done, whether it be the players that they have on the roster or collection of draft picks, have built up the Magic's cupboard of assets tremendously since their arrival. And
even cap space. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but even have an open cap space to potentially bring in more like bigger contracts. I just want to integrate that there because that's an asset in itself.
It's an excellent point because that too is in it of itself is an asset because there's players you could acquire. When you look at try to acquire a pick, if a team will do that, if they need to dump a contract, you can be the third team. You get trade exceptions involved. You can fit all that stuff, and having cap space is much better in a lot of ways than not having cap space because it frees you up to do a lot more moves. And so, the one thing I'll say is, as I kind of mentioned on the show, been doing this for a bit. As the years go by, I can't believe I've been doing it as long as I have. And whether it be my time with the league, or the Magic, or the summer leagues, or the drafts, and you go through, you build these relationships with other people. You're at games. I'm often talking to people on other staffs, scouts for other teams, people from the league level. And, one of the things I really try to do in that time, when whether it be traveling or other people are coming to our arena, is really gauge the sense of how do other teams, how do, people at the league level, et cetera, view our players, And I could say unequivocally, without a shred of doubt, that people have a really high opinion of players up and down the Magic's roster. And I'll also say that the Magic have built up a tremendous amount of assets. And so you put those pieces together, and I think that there's going to be a lot of calls coming the Magic's way, come trade deadline time. I also think that knowing Jeff and John, they're going to be making a lot of phone calls. And so the way I look at it is they're going to be opportunistic. I think on the flip side, as we had talked about at the beginning of the show, in addition to really wanting to see Paolo be, everything you'd want in a number one overall pick, which we saw, the other side of that coin was the other thing you really wanted to see this time of year is how do all these pieces fit together? And I think the one challenge that's going to, fall into the laps of Jeff Weltman is, have you been given enough time to really assess what you need with this roster and know how all these pieces fit together before you decide to start additionally, shuffling things around and making moves? And I think the real tough part about the injuries at the beginning of the season is that it's really delayed that process. Because, for example, when you look at the starting five numbers that we're starting to see now of when Markelle Fultz, Gary Harris, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, and Wendell Carter Jr. are all together, they're putting up some great numbers as a starting five. But again, it's in a very small sample size. And so you wish you had, 40 some games of sample size to go off of, how those bench pieces fit together, how some of the combinations within both of those fit together. And I don't know if they quite have that yet. So, this is why they pay Jeff and John the big bucks, so to speak, is totally. Because they'll have to go sort through that information. But I just, speaking from my own perspective, that would be the tough part for me if I was in their chair, is have I seen enough to be sure before moving things around, because the last thing you want to do is rush that process and, perhaps have some regrets later.
Yeah, they're definitely in a challenging spot because it's like some things they might have enough data on, some things they might not, but also like, I hate to just, outsider looking in as a fan, like this team has a horrible injury history and like you hope that stops at some point and they don't just continue to, well, we don't have enough data because more people have just gotten injured in different ways, at the end of the season. So I'll just leave it at this. Like every trade deadline that this front office has been a part of the Magic organization, they have made some form of move. Not all of them massive. Not all of them.
They may not have been massive at the time.
Yeah.
But look even better later.
Yeah, exactly.
The
bull situation. Yep. Where we, just basically absorbed him and another player that we waived and got some like a second round pick out of it and some cash. And now he's like, a rotation player for us. They've also done a in my opinion, one of the bigger trades where they traded for Markelle Fultz in I think it was their second year. There's always been something that they have done. So it'll be interesting to see, which gives me belief that they're going to do something. I don't know if it's going to be the big thing that some of us want. I don't know if it's going to be just a really minor tweak around the edges, but I think they'll do something. So, Dan,
give me something to write about if they do. So I hope you're right.
Really nice. Really nice. You could come on in a handful of weeks and we could talk about it. Be like, hey, they traded something and they got this person back and it was great. Anyways, Dan, I want to thank you for your time. I always enjoy reading your articles and your tweets and your updates online. Magic fans, I know you are tuned into Dan Savage, but if you're not, check him out. Orlando Magic writer. Dan, you got anything coming up that the Magic fans and readers and listeners should be aware of?
This week is going to be, you mentioned the 4 days that the team kind of has off for no games, but because of MLK Day and the week that's, kind of followed it and what the NBA has done, it's a week of service. So the Orlando Magic, everybody on the staff is spending time this week volunteering.
Oh, that's amazing.
Everybody up and down the staff. So I actually have a volunteer day tomorrow. I do some personal volunteer work just about every Wednesday, where I, spend some time with some wolves, volunteer at a wolf sanctuary.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
So, I did a little bit of that on my own, and then I'll be doing a volunteer project with the Magic tomorrow. So it's been exciting following that. So we'll have a recap of all the different organizational stops and different volunteer groups that the Magic staff has touched at the end of the week. So I'll have something on that.
Very cool.
There's also a cool program. This is a little bit more on the business side of things, but be doing a piece on the Magic kind of soft launched within their app a badge program this year. So if you really think about like Peloton, like if you've ever done that, or some of the other rewards programs where you get rewarded for certain behavior, whether that be coming to every Magic game, whether it be doing some other things, you'll get these badges within your app and your profile, and they'll kind of build up. There'll be other elements to it where if you attended a game where, let's say, there was a game-winning shot, you might get a certain badge for that. There'll be some commemorative tickets digitally that kind of present themselves in the way of NFTs.
Cool.
If you're an NFT guy. So there's a lot of cool stuff going on with that. I'm trying to wrap my head around it and present it in a digestible way for an article. So I was doing a little bit of that before we hopped on here. I was sorting through all that information that cool. Our digital strategy team's been working on tirelessly, and shout out to them. They got some recognition at some of the league meetings this year for this program. So it's really cool. It's only going to get even cooler as they add features to it, because I'm just looking at the digital roadmap for that. So got some of the off the court stuff that I'm focusing on. And then, the other side of it will be really the all-star push as try to look to hopefully, getting Franz and Paolo the recognition that they deserve heading into All-Star weekend.
Absolutely. I'm actually really looking forward to both those articles. The second one sounds really interesting. I'm going to probably, as this episode is downloading, I'm editing, I'll probably be on the app trying to figure out that program that you're talking about, because that sounds really cool. Again, thank you so much for coming on the show. Listeners, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week with another episode of the Close Up Magic. Peace.